Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, yeah, Oklahoma is still talking about Heupel. They're still interested in him. And Urban Meyer is saying that Josh had better pick his QB pretty quickly. He's not liking this whole situation with NICO and what happened there, and now kind of being stuck in a situation where you don't have a named quarterback or anybody that's even worked with the team. And I guess he's talking about Joey Aguilar. But as usual, I do not bury the lead. There's still quite a bit of talk in Oklahoma after last year's season. Brent Venables, he struggled. They went 6-7, had a losing record. Obviously, that puts him on the hot seat. And of course, what's Oklahoma want? Josh Heupel. And here on Stormin' and Norman, talks about a longtime columnist, tips Josh Heupel as Sooners' top choice for the next football coach. Yeah, and here they discuss it on Saturday Down South. They've interviewed Barry Trammell, who's the longtime sports writer who discusses this.
If Venables does indeed get fired, and I'm not saying that's this year, would you ever expect Oklahoma to just write Josh Heupel a blank check to return to Norman?
He'd be the first call, I assume. I have no idea if Josh would entertain the notion or accept. I have no idea. I do know this. He still has a lot of ties, family still lives here. His sister married the son of David Boren, the 24-year OU president, prominent president. David Boren died last year, but Josh's son-in-law, his brother-in-law, is a former United States congressman, prominent Oklahoman. So they got a lot of Oklahoma ties still. So I don't think he would dismiss it.
So they're already talking about it. Brent is definitely on the hot seat. Look, you go 6-7 in Oklahoma, a place where they're used to winning at a very high level, and coming in the SEC is not easy. They were in an easier conference. They're used to winning it really well. They're used to being in the playoffs, and now they're struggling. And Brent, he's having a tough time with the offense. I do like the fact they brought in John Mateer. I think he's a terrific quarterback, and maybe that'll solve a lot of their problems, but they have another losing season. They're going to be looking around. Now, as many of you know, Oklahoma's been eyeing him for a while. And here's a YouTuber. Look, this was last year before our game with Oklahoma. They've been thinking about Heupel for a while over there in Oklahoma land. And he talked about it prior to the game.
But I know deep down inside that all of you Tennessee fans are scared. You're all scared to death of this game. And you don't even know why you're scared, because you're all typing in comments, we're not going to lose the game. We're not going to lose the game. Oh, no, 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 no. You're not scared of losing the game. You're scared of winning the game. What's this idiot Oklahoma fan talking about? We're scared to win. We're going to beat you we're going to put 70 points like we did on Kent State and all this. No. I know your biggest fear, Tennessee fans. I know what keeps you up at night. I know what you do when you stare up at the ceiling, what you think about when it comes to September 21st. But you know deep down inside why you're scared. If you win this game, and you win it like that, you're afraid of what's going to happen afterwards. See, Tennessee fans, they don't want Brent Venables to fail. They want Brent Venables to succeed. See, if Brent Venables fails, that means Oklahoma will need a new head coach. And who's a head coach that's hot right now that has ties to the University of Oklahoma? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Your big boy Josh. We love Josh Heupel. All week we've seen clips from 2000 and people putting up interviews from the old college game days back then. That's how long college game days been, even longer than that. But Josh Heupel was a hero. He was a god here in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So they hadn't forgotten. They're still very interested in Josh Heupel. Now, I've already explained they're not going to get him. We won't allow it. But, this whole thing with NICO, hopefully this doesn't put a monkey wrench into our season. And surely the Tennessee fans, if we don't have a great season, aren't going to get down on him about what happened, because that's crazy. What NICO walking out on a contract, an $8 million contract that he was happy to get the money on when he was sitting on the bench for a year, making $2.5 $2.6 million. But then when he had a year where he could possibly earn all that money, he hightails it for a $1 million loss because he thought everybody'd want him. Not really. So, yeah, Oklahoma's definitely interested, but here is the one big problem they've got.
I don't think that Brent is coaching with a ton of pressure, other than every coach feels pressure because they want to win. But that extension you talk about, that is such an advantageous contract for Brent Venables. I don't know that Oklahoma can afford to fire him, unless disaster hits. 4-8, and Brent's now, his buyout was $35 million. We forget $35 million in this day and age. You know what $35 million can do for a football roster?
Yeah, so a $35 million buyout after this year, not prior to. So it's not going down to like 28. They'd have to pay Brent $35 million bucks. Now, a few years ago, they might have considered it. But I think given the circumstances of having to come up with 20.5 every year because of the House versus NCAA settlement, which is probably going to happen next week or two, that changed the financial environment for athletic directors everywhere. It's not 20.5 once. It's 20.5 every year, and that goes up 4% every year. So that $35 million buyout, that's almost 2 years of your money. And then having to go to a donor and say, hey, buy this guy out. And by the way, it's not tax deductible. Just give us the money. That's going to be difficult. Now, granted, if they go 4-8, look, Oklahoma's got a lot of those oil wells that do this all day long, 24/7. So it's not impossible, but you'd have to find somebody that's very upset. 4-8 might do it, but you need to stay away from Heupel. I've already told you we'll put a blockade down there at Farragut. He's not going any further west than that. So,
did you see that? They went right through our roadblock.
You some bitches couldn't close an umbrella.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll have a better roadblock this next time. But they're thinking about it in Oklahoma land already before the season even starts. So, just thought I'd show you that. Nobody thought NICO would walk either. So, don't be getting down on Heupel if it isn't a great year. It might still be. Who knows? Joey Aguilar might play great. But what happened is pathetic with NICO walking out the way he did. And that's a pretty good segue. We're going to talk about Joey Aguilar. Does Heupel need to name him the starting quarterback pretty early on in the fall so that the team knows who the quarterback is? Urban Meyer seems to think so. Now, granted, he thinks we're screwed, or at least pretty much said that a few weeks ago. Let's see what he's thinking now. This is on the triple option.
The crystal ball is out. We're going to talk about the NICO I-less Tennessee Volunteers. Coach, just remind me what you said about Tennessee a couple weeks ago when NICO left.
They're screwed.
Screwed.
And I'm going to say it again. You would let a potential first round, not let, but a potential first rounder walks out on you, especially a starting quarterback of a team that was in the playoffs.
Yep.
A team at times looked really, really good. And he was a young quarterback. You know what happens to young quarterbacks, Rob?
They get better.
They get better.
Yeah.
So
they get better, and apparently they want to get paid better as well. All right, so BetMGM has set their win total at 8.5. How about this, though, Coach? It was 9.5 before NICO transferred out. Yeah. So it's now down a game to 8.5. Plus,
so it sounds like Urban thinks we should have just gone ahead and paid him. He was already under contract. And he also wanted the offense changed quite a bit. And he wasn't happy with the 5-star tackles we put at bookends on his left and his right. So, but he went to UCLA because they have 3 stars. Anyway, let's see what else he's got to say about this, about naming Aguilar.
So I think they get 8, but I'll tell you what, that's
8.
They still. I'm gonna say they got screwed again. However, the first trade that I'm aware of in college football history, they traded 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
How about saying that? You just traded a quarterback.
They're not going to call it a trade, but that's what it was.
So I went and watched Aguilar because
I
knew I wanted to familiar. I love Appy State, but it is the reality is it's not as you're stepping in the SEC.
Yeah.
So everybody's at least a step, maybe at most positions 2 steps faster. And when you have 24 interceptions, that's about 1 per game. That's way too many. And those interceptions now, the pockets or the windows just are so much tighter.
Yeah.
I will go back on record again as saying Tennessee's screwed. I think now you can get unscrewed real fast if that team develops. But as of whatever the date is, May, we're in the get screwed category.
You can become unscrewed real fast.
Sure,
Right. So
sure.
they need to take out the WD-40 and loosen up some of that rust. Get after that screw and unscrew it and get out of there. Coach Heupel's got himself a little QB quandary right now, right? And he's going to really have to deal with it in the fall because of Aguilar coming in so late. So how does a coach manage an open quarterback race? And let's just say it is a pure open quarterback race where options A, B, and C essentially are level.
When the minute you said you got a quarterback issue, I go right to their schedule. And here's the problem. You screw around with your quarterback because you have to name a quarterback within 2 weeks of training camp. There's no chance that you can let this thing bleed out because the team has to know who your quarterback is. So a guy that's just stepping on campus now, a guy that's only completed or attempted 9 passes, I believe, you have to, and Josh Heupel played quarterback won the Heisman, right? Or at least a national I'm not sure, but he knows enough about quarter play he has to announce this sooner than later. And they got Syracuse, East Tennessee State, and Georgia. You can't come out of that thing 1 and 2 because then you are back into underlying screwed category.
All right, so we'll see if Urban is correct about that. I think Joey will probably end up being the starter. I'd be surprised if not. He's been playing football for 5 years. He's darn near drawing Social Security because he played junior college ball before he went to Appy State. So he's got a ton of experience. He's accurate, and he's not afraid to throw the ball, and he gets it out quick. Now, the question is, because this offense is set up the way it is, it should make it pretty easy for him to pick up on it. We know Hendon Hooker picked up on it like that. You know, his first year, he threw 30 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So it can be picked up that quick. And he didn't start till the second game against Pittsburgh in the middle of it. And then behind him, you have Jake Merklinger, who is a redshirt freshman, and then George McIntyre, who's a true freshman. Somebody's got to pick it up and be ready. Because when you go up against Syracuse, that's not an easy win. I'll go ahead and tell you, that's a solid program right now. They're playing well. Now, they have a brand new quarterback, too. They got the Angeli kid from Notre Dame, who we looked at too. So that's kind of a unique game. God, I wish we were playing UCLA. Man, wouldn't that be a great opening game? Nico versus Joey and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs as well. They're breaking in a brand new quarterback, and so are we. So that's an advantage. At least they don't have a veteran who's been there for 2 or 3 years. But anyway, I wanted to show you that, kind of give you a feel for what's going on. Oklahoma's got their eyeing Josh Heupel, but $35 million bucks. I think we're okay for now, but if they go 4-8, it could get ugly. And Urban, we don't know. We'll find out. Look, everybody's in shock over what happened with NICO. I know I am. I can't believe it. I guess contracts don't mean anything, but I guarantee you this. Had we not fulfilled the contract on our end to pay him, he'd have sued the crap out of us.
You're out of order! You're out of order! The whole trial is out of order!
And they are suing the other IAMALEAVA kid that went from Arkansas that was there for 3 months. He walked out on his contract too. Guess he didn't like the offense there either. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. Well, I spent a lot of time in the comment section yesterday. We were talking about Michigan and that whole big scandal up there and all that big mess. But you can leave a comment on this one if you've got some interest. I spent a lot of time in there. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit this little button right there. It won't cost you a dime, help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video, YouTube. Thanks, you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk J. God, I hope Urban's wrong.
Wrong.
You're so wrong,